Hey everybody, Josh Tovad here on a Sunday night, Memorial Day weekend, making sure that we're all together and finish off the Fantastic Four PD weekend here with a very exciting and awesome guest that all of us should follow. And if you don't know who he is, get out of that rock. You got to find out who that guy is about because you know what? He is a great leader, and we'll get into the details about him. But we all need to take this time to enjoy this free PD that started off Saturday with Coach Sean Hurd, with Tammy, with Shika, with Principal Cafele, finishing off the Fantastic Four tonight with author speaker Ken Williams here on Unlock the Middle. And then let's make sure that we hear everything from you, whether you be in Alaska or Hawaii, whether you be in Maine or Florida, or we're in the middle. We're all together. And we're finishing off a very interesting year. And you know what? This last year or last week pretty much took a little bit part out of all of us. And we all need to hone in our stories, get all of this out there to make sure that we bring in more quality people to our field. Our kids need us with those special tools to our tool chest, and it can only happen by us interacting. So, South Dakota, come on over. Iowa, come on over. Wisconsin, come on over. We need to hear what your tools are because you know what? Due to this economy and everything going out there, our kids are moving around from state to state. Our kids here at MPA in Texas might be going up there to Dean. So we need to be in connection to make sure that we're using the right tools, the right things to connect with kids. And our guest tonight will give us a lot of those tools to ensure student success, teacher success, and most importantly, success for the future of America, which are our students. Dean, what do you think about that?
Hey, first and foremost, Josh, I don't know how I'm going to top that, but I am going to top it by saying right out of the chute here, happy Memorial Day to everybody out there right now. I want to thank all of our veterans that served our country, that died for us, our freedoms, and all those types of things. I hope you take some time this weekend to be able to pay tribute to all of them because we live in a great nation, a nation where you can do anything you want, anytime you want. And that's the beauty about living in America. Hey, this is Navigating Leadership number 65. I'll tell you, it's probably well over 200 episodes we've done. But tonight, we're really going to bring on a pioneer, somebody who's really taken the reins here in equity, but more importantly, turned around so many schools. And he's just somebody that we want to make sure that we dig in and really pick his brain a little bit about all the successes that he has had. My name is Dean Packard. I'm the principal at Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. I would be remiss if I didn't say Chris is still with his son. He's finishing up his AAU baseball season. He'll be back with us soon. I think this is the last weekend. So he said to send his best, and he will be back with us very soon. So with that being said, hope you had a great day. Sunday night is all about getting better. Josh, and down in the state of Texas, I know your year is slowing down. We're right behind you. We get out on June 16th, but there's a lot of things still happening right now. When do you get out of school?
Graduation June the 9th, and the last day is June the 10th for our team members. Make sure they pack up, but then June 13th, summer school starts.
Summer school starts. So the journey never stops. That journey called learning. How big is that, huh? And we want to make sure that every child can access and have equity with their learning, no matter what goes on. And that's going to be the segue into what we talk about tonight. So I know that you reached out and you found Ken Williams. So actually, I'm going to bring him in right now, Josh. And here he is. Ken, welcome to our show. Great to have you with us, my friend.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, we're really excited to have you here tonight. Josh, why don't you start off, okay? Because I know that you are the man here.
Well, a couple of years ago when I took over the previous campus, it was that school. I messaged Ken. I sent him a message, and I said, that school. He does vignettes, and he does. If you have to follow him. You all don't know. If you're an educator, you're following right now. Follow Ken Williams. He's one of those go-to guys. And I had kind of an interesting day at the school, and I saw his video, and he says, "Hey, he's got this voice," and they connected with me, and I go, "Are you in that school?" And I heard the whole vignette, and I'm like, "Darn it, he's talking to me." Yes, I'm in that school, and they kept on going. And you know what? It's one of those things where he puts up, just like Cafela says, a big mirror, and it's a self-reflection of what we, not collective I, but what we are doing to ensure that we, all the PLC, remember, PLC is the campus, collaborative team is the group, and we are working to make sure that we provide all the opportunities for our students so that we change the culture and the climate of the campus. And from that moment on, I followed Ken Williams, and I made sure that I stuck to him because you know what? We need that mirror. We need that sounding board to make sure that as administrators, We try to take the best path from people that already walked it. You're not alone. If you're an administrator and you go home and you're tired, that's your fault because you're carrying the whole load by yourself. You're not alone. There's tons of people out there with the experience that already walked through that minefield and are putting pellets. They're spray painting the floor for you to avoid those landmines. So it's very important that right now, all of you, you don't follow him, as Cafela says on your other device, follow him. But I introduced to you somebody that assisted me with a mirror and made sure that I reflected on our practices as a campus, and you can't get away from that hat. I always talk about, whenever we're talking about Ken Williams, is that school and the hat. I present to you a great leader, an awesome man, very positive, great guy, Ken Williams. Thank you and welcome to the show. Thank you,
Thank you,
senor.
brother. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. That's quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
Ken, why don't you take it one step further and tell everybody who you are, what you're all about, what you've done, a little bit about your journey to the successful point that you're at right now.
Awesome, man. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm a husband, father, educator. I started as a classroom teacher, assistant principal, school principal. I've led a couple of different schools through the Learning for All culture process. And for the past 14 or so years, I've been consulting, training, coaching, and speaking at schools all across North America. I pinch myself every day. It's great work. It's challenging work. And I'm really glad to be here. So, Josh talked about that school, and
I want to hear the definition. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I was at the lowest performing school. I decided to move back to Atlanta because I love the district I was in Maryland, Montgomery County Public Schools, but my wife and I were teachers and we couldn't afford a modest single family home in the district where we taught. And that bothered me. Like I had to jump counties I'm with a profession that creates all professions. But Atlanta, you can get your come up in Atlanta. Like Atlanta builds a house for everybody. And I'm from New York City, so Atlanta may seem like a big city to a lot of people, but it doesn't to me. Anyway, we moved here and I was named the principal at a school and discovered that it was the lowest performing school in the district. And the district was the lowest performing district in the greater Atlanta area at the time. And in my mind, I was like, we're all struggling. I mean, there are a few schools that are popping up, but we're all struggling. Well, we're sitting at some district meeting at one time and they're going over data. And there are schools that, we're down at the bottom of the barrel, man. We are like, there's the gum under the shoe. Like we the dirt under the gum under the shoe. And so you go from the dirt under the gum to the gum of the shoe. There was a school next to me that was the gum of the shoe. And I looked, if let's say it's Dean, I'm looking at Dean like, man, we got to get ourselves together. He was like, well, you got to get yourself together. We're not as bad as your school is. We're not as bad as, we're not that school. That's what I realized. It doesn't matter how the school is doing. There's always that school. I worked in districts where, half the school's about to go to hell. But as long as there's one dumping ground that we can look to and say we're not as bad as them, we can relax a little bit. And I just said, man, oh man, there's just a certain type of leadership that goes on at that school. Unfortunately, there's often a huge spotlight shown on it, which is fine. I'm cool with the light. But it also comes with lots of resources and responsibilities and golden handcuffs and lots of money that comes with it. And that's what I started to see these patterns. It's like they're throwing all this stuff at us that there's no way we can do it all well. There's no way. It's all great stuff, like 5 different initiatives going on at the same time. And I just realized we can't do any of this well. And I looked around, I was like, I don't think they really give a damn if we can't do it well. All they want to say in the end is, well, we had Ken and Josh. We threw all sorts of money, all sorts of resources, all sorts of shiny boxes at their school, and still look at them. They still haven't gotten anywhere. But they're going to sleep easy because they hammered us with all that stuff. So I started, like Josh talked about, those vignettes. I do these short, I call them micro learning videos. They're all under 2 minutes. And they just target that leadership because the world at large is going to look at you and say, you're doing the best you can, Josh and Ken and Dean. We know you working hard with those kids. And that's even if you don't get results. And I'm just here, man. I know that all the breakthroughs that happen at Josh's school, like Josh talks about my videos, nobody puts out more. My wife's like,
Nobody does.
Who's doing a podcast now? I said, look, this cat defines his narrative through these videos.
Yep.
He celebrates everyone and everything. If from the custodian, from the assistant principal, all the way up to the custodian, everybody, you can't not go there and not be seen. This cat defines belonging. And so that's the kind of leadership you have to have, because as Josh's school is getting better, it's not because of, well, I don't want to assume. Have you had a whole wave of new residents that have come in with a large tax base and all sorts of doctoral degrees and opening up companies and businesses in the area? No. 2 years ago, you were serving the same kids you were serving now, with the same family, same issues, same everything. Building culture happens from the inside out, not the outside in. And that's what the three of us understand. And that's what a lot of us, we don't understand that enough. That's not the only key, but it's got to start there, right? I hate it when people felt sorry for me because I'm at that school. I don't feel sorry for me. That's why we changed the name. It wasn't a private school. No, we just decided, we did this shared vision one day, and, we didn't do a regular vision statement, which most schools do. They just take the vision statement and stick the word vision in somewhere. We actually did a day in the life where we just said, all right, from the time Mr. Packard gets out of his car, let's tell that story, right? He walks to the sidewalk. You don't have weeds coming up through the cracks, swiping at his shins. The outside's looking good. The grass is manicured. That way we got our custodial staff involved with our shared vision. You come into the building, the foyer is beautiful. The floors are waxed. And we had an old dingy ass building too. That way we got our custodians involved. You walk into the office, you're greeted like a client, right? Looking at the physical layout of it, how you being greeted. We wrote out, it was like 2-page day in the life. What happens when you walk down the hallway? We had hood aspirations, as I call them. We wanted parents late, 5 minutes late for every parent meeting, because there was so much great student work in the hallways, they could not help but stop and read it. You know what I'm talking about? So we had that kind of vision, man. And then we put pressure on ourselves to make that happen. And we looked at our shared vision. We said, man, this sounds like a private school. And I said, we need to start talking like we're a private school. So we changed our name from E.J. Swint Elementary to the Learning Academy at E.J. Swint. I changed the letterhead, got us a eagle that, eagle with some, they had a big old dumb eagle, just out of shape eagle, big old dumb beak, just looking fat and dumb. The eagle we got us a war eagle, changed the colors. I couldn't change the letterhead on the school because I hadn't asked permission to change the name at all. But man, we started applying some, the promises and practices that look like and sound like the private school we were seeking to become, like that reputation. And the results began to follow. And listen, I'm not going to make it sound like it just happened like that, but that's where it started. I remember before I went into consultancy full-time, my assistant superintendent was super supportive, Dr. Cephas Jackson. He's retired. Phenomenal man. I remember him sitting me down and he said, Mr. Williams, did you ever get board approval for changing that name? And I just laughed and said, was I supposed to get approval for that? And it's culture changes from the inside out. It doesn't change when you get a new wave of kids. It doesn't change when new parents come in. And unfortunately, in this very scared of our own shadow society where we bathe way too much in victimhood, that's where we go. We keep talking about what the kids damn don't have. And I get what they don't have. What I'm saying is, when you step into Josh's school, that's where you get them Chromebooks. All right, the kid doesn't have internet at home. Josh got bonus internet at the school. Dean, don't you have internet? So let's max out when our kids are there. I don't want to spend as much time. So if the kids don't have internet at home, then we need to double down and be even better during the contracted duty day. Right. Plus, I want the kids to have a life, right? My neighbor's got 4 kids across the street, all stagger step like the Brady Bunch. And they go out and play after school. I want more kids to do that. So they shouldn't have 8 hours of homework anyway. But let's stop focusing on what they don't have in areas we cannot control and focus on what they can have and do have at the place where they spend most of their waking hours, which is with us at school.
I love when you say that, because the first thing that I'm going to is the first impression syndrome that every school needs to have. When you step foot out of your car, you better be gleaming, man. You better be marketing and selling just a great place to be. If you're not doing that, shame on you right now.
That's right.
You set a tone, and you don't want to do that. Now, Ken, I just want to ask you before we get into anything else. You know what? You just gave me a nice background on that school and what it was all about. But you changed narratives. Okay. You talk about, now that's a paradigm shift. Okay. So you went from the day-to-day stuff and you put some things in that really made the school a brighter place. But talk about changing the narrative. How hard was that to do? And what does that look like?
It's hard, man. It's hard. But one, you've got to have a place where you want to go. So it starts with a destination. And when we start talking about equity a little later, I'm going to talk about that as well. You got to have a picture where you want to go. So that long day in a life thing, that gave us this ideal picture. What does our school look like 3 years from now? If we were the first story on the network news and it happened to be positive, what would they be talking about? If we were on the cover of the newspaper, what are they saying about us? So we had to paint this picture. In more technical terms, we started with the ideal profile of a student at every grade level. I'm working with a high school, just signed on to high school. And I said, we got to start with, what is the ideal profile of every high school student walking out of there? What is the ideal profile of an 8th grade student walking out of your middle school? So once you have and I don't mean ideal profile as in he's nice, he's a good citizen. That stuff's important. I'm talking about academically, right? And so in mathematics, we want that student here when they walk out, right? In terms of the way they're able to write. I'm not talking about minimums. I'm talking about essentials. Where do we want them? Once we establish that helped us get out of our own way, because up to that point, we were establishing profiles based on what surrounded us. Like there was a hood ideal profile of a 5th grade student walking out of our school. There was a hood for this, and this is what we do. We make that stuff subjective. Competent educators, right? I should be able to get 4 7th grade math teachers to come together and say, look, put all the kids' circumstance to the side. What do we want every 7th grade student to walk out knowing and being able to do? And get your 8th grade teachers involved with that conversation. And the way I do that is 8th grade teachers, what are the 3 to 5 skills or competencies you want every 7th grader to walk in knowing cold when they enter to 8th grade? So again, once you build that profile, what that does is that it removes judgment. It removes judgment, because if I need every 7th grader to know how to make this water jug, if we've determined that this is an essential skill by the end of 7th grade, then it doesn't matter where Dean comes from, whom his mama is, who his daddy is, whether he's got support at home. All that's context now. Our job is to, where's Dean? Grow him to this. Where's Josh? Grow him to this. Without this, though, we're left to judge. Then I'm here trying to figure out, well, what I think Dean can and cannot do. Now, look, I use this example all the time, just to, in the same vein, if we say every 7th grader's got to walk out knowing how to make this remote, and it's got carry the 1, 6, 8 buttons, right? We got to grow every student to this. That's the work. What they don't have at home, what they don't come to school with, that stuff we got to fill in. But we got this place where they all have to go. See, now we've removed judgment. Now, there's this remote. This one's not essential, but it's available. It's available. It's got whatever, 14 buttons on it or whatever it's got. This one's not essential, but it's available for those who want to aspire to it. So it's available to everyone, but only some will aspire, and that's okay. Then look, we got this one. This one got 30-something buttons on it, right? You got some kids who are just like robot nerds and stuff like that, super tech nerds, circuits and stuff. All I ask is that all 3 of these be available, right? We're not going to save these for the gifted kids who come from homes like Josh's home and Ken's home and Dean's home. where we have provided them with all sorts of background. They've gone on trips. We can get them tutors. We want every kid. I had kids, and you got them. You got those kids who you just, on your worst days, wish they would be absent one day. The kids that drive you the craziest got the best immune systems on earth, don't they? Am I lying? The best immune systems on earth. They never sick and they're never absent. I had one who would drive me crazy, and he could take a clock off the wall and literally, and I've seen him do it, blow that thing out into all 500 parts across the table. And then when you come in and yell at him, he'll put it all back together. It'll be working better than it did the first time. Access and opportunity. But you got to establish that place where all students have to go. If you don't, then you're going to be wearing what I call the backpack of boulders, which is judgment. And I got to figure out what I think Josh can and cannot do and what Dean can and cannot do. And I talk about that in my book. You don't want that pressure. I don't want that pressure. If I know every kid's got to have this, yeah, I'm going to be frustrated with kids who've never touched a remote, who've never seen a television, who have no idea what electricity is. But that's just context. If Dean has no electronic appliances at his home, okay, that tells us we're going to be starting down here. We've got to grow Dean up to it. Without this, we just hope Dean grow a little bit over the year. That's what we hope for. If Dean grows some, it's okay. That's what I call charity work. Like all that white savior stuff you were hearing about during the social justice movement, which is still going on. Listen, that savior stuff goes on in all races and all cultures. I've worked in schools where everybody looked like everybody's cousin, and we doing the worst job in the world. I've seen where you walk in and you look different, or your parents make different money, or you from that side of town, or you knew money versus old money, or you just moved into an area that only taught its own. Listen, the bottom line is this: if you don't have that place established where all kids must go in every content area, then you open yourself up to inequitable practice.
Breaking down barriers, my friend. I
Yes,
love
sir.
it. Absolutely. Josh.
You know what, Ken? Amen with everything that you said. In regards to just finishing off this part of it, and I think that I love what you wrote in the book at the very beginning. Those 3 questions that all starts with our classroom team leaders or facilitators on what their idea or belief that a kid can accomplish. So from the survey, I think it was who was it, Cobb and Crone apples that you used for that.
Yes, sir.
And then you got those 3 things. I highly suggest. Okay, look, I'm telling you, just based on the early stuff that I read from his book, every leader needs to read this over the summer, because it's the things that we need to reflect as leadership. Because you call whatever you call it in Spanish, you call it mijito syndrome. Ay, mijito. Oh no, he just came to this country.
Yep.
Ay, mijito. No, they can't learn English. Ay, mijito. No, that's a viable candidate American citizen.
Of course.
You got to prepare him or
Of
her.
course.
Don't matter if it's Afghan. I don't know what they say in Afghanistan for mijito, but you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
It's about making sure, like Ken said. So you need to read those things. So how did you? And this is one of those questions that I walked in your shoes before you walked in them. Just saying, how did you get teachers to self-reflect and set high expectations for their kids? Does that make sense?
Well, so there's a logistical way. This work, I know it. It's 50% mindset and 50% practice. Right? So the practice part is you got to identify essentials. Right? I ask algebra teachers all the time. I get 3 of them in a room. Raise your hands, algebra teachers. They all raise their hands. And I say, if you're teaching algebra 1, preparing kids for algebra 2, are there skills and standards that every kid has to master to have any chance at algebra 2? And they say absolutely yes. And then I ask, is it every single standard in the algebra 1 curriculum? They say no. So I said, I'm going to get you together and you're going to narrow down the ones that the kids absolutely have to have. And then those are the ones that you have to become ruthless about. Those are the ones, there is no can there, can't they? There's only how will we get them there. So 1, you have to establish essential learning outcomes. That's the first thing. But then the mindset part is you have to treat them like they're essential. I love our profession. I love educators. Listen, if I say this all the time, just from talking with you guys for a few minutes, if you, me, and Josh could teach all the kids, we wouldn't have any gaps. But we can't teach all the kids. But we are slow to change, man. So now we're at a stage where I'm working with more and more schools and districts that have established essentials. They went through the process. They go through the protocol. They look for the ones that give us the most bang for the buck. They look for the ones that show up on the test, the ones that the next grade level says you have. Gotcha. I get plenty of places like, we did that part. Well, the next part is you have to, like, this switch comes on. Click. You both been teachers. You don't need to narrow down the standard, but haven't there been times in your teaching career where you look at something and say, not a damn kid is walking out of here without these? And then you do whatever has to be done. You marshal whatever resources, you pull in whatever teammates, you do what has to be done to make that happen, correct? That's the mindset part about essentials. And that's the part that troubles us, because I believe we struggle from a crisis of confidence. I've gotten to a point in my career, I've made a career of trying to simplify everything. I do a lot of work with the PLC process, and sometimes there were just too many moving parts at the same time. I just keep drilling it down and drilling it down. And I got it down to where it's stripped down to nothing, and I still get people resisting. And I realize this is not a teacher or leader saying, I don't want kids to learn. Nobody gets into this field to not want kids to learn. I believe this is a crisis of confidence. This is a crisis of confidence. I believe deep down that when you put your back to the wall and decide no kid is walking out of here without X, Y, and Z, it has many of the same elements as starting that new business you've been thinking about, but you scared as hell to start it, or publishing that book that's been inside you or has been written, but you've not published it yet, or trying that new idea or starting that new career. That going for itness, and I talk about it in the book, that's a scary thing. It's why most people stand pat in issues of quiet desperation rather than aspire and grab onto something. And the idea that every kid has got to walk out. We got to get every kid there, even Melvin, even Julio, right? All of them. That scares us. And I believe that's a piece of it. So you got to have mindset and practice. And that goes for both teachers and leaders. And I train them both on those ways. Because listen, once your teachers get a taste of what they can accomplish when they lean into their collective genius, I mean, beyond what's going to happen in spite of us. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In most schools, most kids going to learn in spite of us. We talking about that. You know what I'm talking about. You teach something, 80% of the kids get it the first time around, right? You teach it the second or third time, the next 12 get it, 12%, and then you got that 8%. That's where we make our money. And sometimes that 8% just takes longer to learn. And sometimes they look like me. And sometimes they look like Josh. And sometimes they look like Dean, who's from a different side of town, and they don't know his family history and blah, blah, blah. Because look, race and culture get all the attention, but it's human nature we find ways to separate ourselves. It doesn't matter. I've seen, and this is another reason I wrote the book. We want to make equity all about race and culture. Race and culture brought it to the surface. The whole George Floyd, I get it. But equity is human. Equity is about humanity. I've worked in a relatively rural white district. I mean, all white. All white. And they have so many of the same equity issues that I find in the hood, because God love them, they were finding just insane ways to separate themselves. If you lived beyond 12th Street, you were those kind of people. If you lived in the trailer parks over there, you were those kind of people. If you weren't part of these 3 last names for the last 50 years, you those kind of people. If you not new money and living, you understand what I'm saying? So they had a whole caste system going the way, with the same kinds of stuff. And the stuff they were doing with no malice intended looked so much like the stuff we believe only happens through the lens of race and culture. Equity is not rooted in race. Equity is not rooted in culture. If you don't have this in place, you got an equity issue.
That's right.
If you got a group of kids who are learning below grade level all year long, you got an equity issue and a social justice issue. And so that's where I'm coming from with the book, and I'm going to shut up in a second so you can ask a question.
Yeah,
But, listen, one of the reasons I wrote the book is this. You cannot accomplish that which you cannot define. It's impossible to accomplish what you cannot define. And you get any 10 educators in a room and say, what is equity? What is instructional equity? You're going to get, out of 10 people, you're going to get 12 different definitions. And that's another problem I have with it. 12 different definitions. I was with a principal a week and a half ago in New York. And she said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read your book. And I said, that's great. I'm going to sign one to you. She said, yeah, our equity council's meeting tomorrow in the library. And what I'm doing is I have 7 different definitions of equity I'm posting around the room. And I'm going to ask the team to walk over to the one that resonates most with them. And all I said to her, because she was in the middle of dismissal, I said, I just want you to think about this. If there's 7 definitions of anything, is there a definition? Not 7 examples, not 7 scenarios, 7 definitions, sir. That we're already in trouble. And so I sought to codify equity, make it tangible, practical, actionable. And that's what I've done here. Equity, and this is, in my book, in a culture of belonging and inclusion, organizing to ensure students get what they need, when they need it, with urgency to master essential learning outcomes. That's how I define instructional equity, and I urge you to agree with me on it.
And hold on, Josh, before you go, I don't even know where to begin because there was so much embedded with what you just said that I'm just sitting there smiling and saying, you're hitting every important part. You said something to me that it resonates with me. I've been in leadership now for 20 years, and we never simplify our jobs, ever. And it's one of the reasons why you look at a school improvement plan with 20 things on there. You look at a district improvement plan with 50 things on there. Forget it. Give us 3 things that we want to do really, 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 really well. And guess what happens? We begin to move in a direction that is really favorable for everybody. And access and equity for everybody can be part of that in some capacity. There's no doubt about that. It's like universal design for learning, too. When you start thinking about how to roll this out, systems in place make you successful. That's any coach will tell you that's out there. Long story short here, I got one thing I got to ask you. I want to go back to this for a second. You said everything starts with the crown. Starts with the crown.
Yes, sir.
Okay? When you want to you want to connect with everybody on your campus, there's a reason for it. What does that mean? Everything starts with the crown.
I know thank you. So I'll tell you. So I first heard about it when I was 16. I'm not going to get into the whole long story. In fact, it's in the book. My 7th grade teacher pulled me aside, told me where I was going to college. I'm a first generation college graduate. I'm walking to school wearing hand-me-downs, my cousin's jeans, and carrying lunch in a Wonder Bread lunchbox, which wasn't a lunchbox. It was the Wonder Bread bag. Anyway, I applied to one college, Morehouse College in Atlanta, and I got the brochure. And on the back of the brochure was a quote by one of the past presidents, a theologian, Dr. Howard Thurman. And the quote said, above the head of her students, Morehouse holds a crown she challenges them to grow tall enough to wear. I didn't know what it meant. I just know it resonated with me. It's just something about it. 25 years later, I woke up one day and I realized that's equity. That's like when you want a picture of equity, that's what equity is. And in the book, those very popular images you see where the kids are all trying to watch the game or every kid's trying to pick an apple from the tree. If you look at the equity side, the crown is where they have to go, and then you grow them to it. Even though Dean doesn't have a lot of support at home, even though Dean's mommy comes up and raises hell and is a pain at times, even though you almost got to pick Dean up 2 times a week, even though Dean is a year and a half behind, here's where he has to go. Our work is to grow him to it. You grow the kids to the crown. In those images, and I cite them in the book, when the kids are watching a game, I ask my audience, what is the essential outcome that must be achieved? And they all say, to watch the game with an unobstructed view. That is the crown. And then you notice in that picture, you get kids what they need when they need it to get there. Another one has those kids picking apples from the tree. And I ask them, what's the crown there? picking the apples. So one kid has a ladder, one kid has a blah, 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 you know, with urgency, right? What they need, when they need it, with urgency to master essential learning outcomes. So when I talk about equity work, I say start with the crown, which is one of the 4 rules of ruthlessness and ruthless equity. Start with the crown, not with the kid. Start with the crown, not with the kid. Am I immune to kids walking in half disheveled, unkept, clearly behind, got learning issues, all that stuff? I'm not immune to that. I had that. Had all that, like you have all that. But when I start with the crown, it puts all those issues in context. See, with no crown, then I'm going to take the fact that Dean makes these ticking noises, right? And has kind of an unusual way of absorbing information. That's going to mess with my brain, and it's going to impact how I calibrate my expectations. I see Josh is, if he's not from another country, his family is. And right there, I may start calibrating my expectations. But when I start with the crown, then I've got to find a way to leverage, find out Dean's strengths, find out what he's great at, find out that's another thing about the crown. We got to start with what the kids are great at. And that's not being positive and Pollyanna. It's common sense. Who walks into an interview with a panel and says, hey, and they say, Ken, tell us why you're qualified. Tell us why you think you're a good fit for this school. And I said, well, before I tell you all that, can I take 5 minutes to tell you what I suck at? Who does that? No one. And yet kids who we deem quote unquote struggling learners, all we do is focus on what they can't do and try to use what they can't do to get them better at what they can't do. But everybody else in the world uses their strengths to bolster weaker areas. That's what we got to do. But you got to start with the crown, not with the kid. You start with the crown. And that's what I asked you. What is it every 7th grade student needs to know at the end of year in math? Once you have that, that's the crown. And then you grow kids to it. And what that keeps you from doing is doing charity work. See, without this crown in place, and you got Dean and all his issues and his family's issues, like I said earlier, you just hope Dean just grows some. I call that the Melvin syndrome. I got a video called I Know Your Melvins, because that's what people tell me. That all means all sounds good, Ken. It does sound good, but I mean, if you knew our students, right? That's what you whispering to your teammate. That's what they whisper when I'm talking. If he knew Melvin, he wouldn't be talking about all. If he knew Melvin, if he knew Dean and Josh, no, I know all your Melvins. My whole school was Melvins. I'm not trying to hear it. We got to get them here. And so, because what happens is this: once you have this in place, it is going to pace you. It's going to help you decide what's urgent, what you can cut, what corners you can cut, what you can leverage, what you can't include, right? How long is this broadcast?
45 minutes.
45 minutes, right? But the 3 of us know we could talk for damn 3 days straight. We can go for 3 hours without taking a breath and just have somebody come in and wipe this up. But we got 45 minutes. So because of that 45-minute crown, it has helped pace you. You got things you want to get out. You got things you want to hear me say that we got to get done in 45 minutes. That's what the crown does. You got to start with the crown, not with the kid. When you start with the kid, it allows for excuses. When you start with the crown, those excuses become context. I'm sorry.
Well, let's start with the crown, and that beautiful yellow book there that we started reading a couple of hours ago. Appreciate it. What I saw real quick was that it's broken down into 2 sections. The very first 4 chapters, equity, rhetoric, complacency, ruthless equity, and then you go into your 4 pillars on how to make sure that we create a beautiful learning environment for all
yes,
students. Sir. So that's the way I noticed. And then I love reading the first chapter and a half, and it spoke volumes to me. So what can you say? How can we summarize the ideas of the first 4 chapters? I know that's kind of hard for me to say right now, but what can you present to someone that's out there that has really gotten hooked in by what you're presenting right now to make sure that we address that to our
Yeah. So I've been doing equity work for 20 years, and listen, I've been doing equity work for 20 years. And I call myself a grumpy uncle. I'm happy that equity is on the tip of everyone's tongue, but it ain't new, right? I see Kafele, he's grumpy like me. It ain't new, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm glad it's here. But the problem is it's been pulled in 4,000 different directions with great intention, mostly for clicks, mostly for symbols. In the book, I describe two conditions, cosmequity and selequity. Cosmequity is cosmetic equity. Went to another school, in the library, laid out unopened boxes, no exaggeration, 10,000 books of authors of color, all random, not distributed. Ordered. Why? Because we got this equity issue, and we think if we order books of kids of color, that's equity. That's not equity. That's a nice gesture once you got equitable practices in place. Or on the other hand, I'm working with a school district where all they want to talk about are huge global issues, institutional racism and white supremacy, and all these things that may be real, but it's not, you're not going to move the needle for achievement tomorrow for the kids who are sitting in front of you. All the case I'm making for is this. There are equity issues right here on your doorstep, right on your porch. Let's deal with those, right? I just threw away, I know there's a world pollution problem, and I can sit up and blow hard about that all day long, or I can do my part. When I walk outside, I see a piece of paper on the ground, I pick it up, make sure I throw it away. All I'm saying is we got equity issues right on our doorstep. We got policies and practices that prevent equity, and that's what this book is about. Identifying the factors that impede equity, the factors that advance equity, and identifying the habits of mind and practice to move equity forward. All right. So that's one. Two, I got tired of it being ambiguous. I mean, I've had school, like I said, I talk about the schools, like I've worked with a ton of schools, but another school, not the same district, but another district, mostly white kids, they kind of like, well, we don't need equity. We got because everything about equity's been boiled down to race and culture. But that's not the truth. That's what brought attention, but it's not the truth. Thirdly, I know to achieve equity, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to be ruthless. And I say this with zero immodesty. And I mean this. And I'm trying to say this in a way, look, I'm not at the beginning of my career where I would have keynoted a group of squirrels, right? I would have keynoted, you know what I'm saying? I would have keynoted a Pampers convention just to get some work. I'm doing all right. I've got a decent level of demand. Now, I say that and say this. This book needs to be in the hands of every single educator in your district, bar none. And I say that with zero immodesty, and that's not about book sales. I believe it with everything in me. The ruthless part comes from this, and ruthless is rarely a word that's ever used with anything positive. But I think about Olympic athletes. And while I love the competition itself, the backstories are really cool as well. And you hear about the kid who's on the hockey team, right? The U.S. hockey team, and how the kid gets up at 4:30 in the morning and from 5 o'clock to 6:30 goes to the rink and practices. And then from 6:30 to 7:15 comes home, grabs a bite to eat, showers, gets dressed, and is out waiting for the bus. The bus drives an hour to school. After school, he's back on the rink for another 2-hour practice, blah, blah, blah. You hear the same thing about the gymnasts and the wrestlers and all of them. And here's the conclusion I came to. To be excellent at anything, you cannot give your time, attention, and focus to everything. You got to be ruthless about the things that matter and equally ruthless about the things that don't. And with equity, you've got to be completely ruthless because you are being bombarded with noise that tells you that if they're poor, they can't learn. If they're from that neighborhood, they can't learn. That the factors outside your school are stronger than the ones inside your school. That the stuff that they're dealing with outside your school will supersede the talent inside your school. And we all know, some of us are on this call. I know I'm sitting here because I had teachers who were ruthless. And so you got to be ruthless about it. And I identify the enemy of equity, which is complacency. And I know what people think when they hear complacency, thinking I'm kind of just lazy sitting back. But what I'm telling you is complacency comes in so many subtle forms that it's on you before you know it. I can promise you, it's on you before you know it. So to achieve equity, you got to achieve excellence. To be excellent at anything, you got to be ruthless about some things. And I'm talking about doing this during your contracted duty day, not working 24 hours, 7 days a week. But you got to be ruthless, because I'm telling you, even well-intentioned folks on both sides of whatever the aisle is, I think sometimes two sides of the same coin. I'm keeping it real with you, right? You got the folks who don't believe kids from neighborhoods like yours and mine can learn, who look like you and me can't learn, right? Whatever, racist, prejudice, got it. I got it. But damn it, on the other side of that coin, you get the so-called advocates who cast kids as so broken they can't learn either. To me, I mentioned this in the book, Ruthless Equity, the racists and the advocates sometimes are the extreme parts, two sides of the same coin. No internet at home, they're too much, they're poor, and too poor, and too... I didn't live in abject poverty, but I don't know where broke comes in on that scale, because that's where we were. We were broke. Like, we lived check to almost check. You understand what I'm saying? We lived check to almost check. And so I'm here because I had a handful of teachers max out the time they had with me during the school day. We so busy crying over what they don't have at home, get them the Chromebook at school. Let's max out at school. So you got to shut that noise out. And then I got these 4 rules of ruthlessness and points of reflection. But you gotta be willing to look up under the cornbread, as my grandfather would say, pull the carpet back, the corners of the carpet back, and have these conversations. And I do it through a lens that is about coaching. Right? I'm never going to write a book about how to teach a certain group of kids. That's not right or wrong. It's just not my work. My work is universal practice. The stuff that if you work, it'll work it. You work it, it'll work. If you work it, it'll work. Max out the time we have at school. Universal practice. And I always come from a place of coaching, which means I know who our workforce is. Hey, you got these books out here telling white women, you can't teach kids of color. How crazy is that? Profession, 85% white women. And we got books out here telling folks they can't. You crazy. The teachers who helped me get here today, some will blend into our Christmas picture and some gonna stand out. You read about them. So I'm coming from a coaching perspective, which means I'm trying to reach inside you and pull out your greatness so that you can be better. But I say it in the book. The book's not designed to blow sunshine off your back for 197 pages. I don't do that. I'm going to tell you you're awesome, and then we're going to get to the game film. We're going to get to the game film on how to dismantle ability groups. I got some incredible strategies on how to dismantle ability groups, the kind of complacency you have to look for in your teammates, the ones who try to sabotage you. You got the bag draggers. You got expensive people. Look for complacency in yourself. All in the pursuit of excellence, and there's not a damn thing in here that I mentioned that I've not done myself or screwed up. Okay,
and I'm going to jump in for 1 second because I want to say thank you for somebody who's been in this business for a long time. You put a meaning on equity that just took it out of one tunnel vision, and you just made it so broad, and it exists in every public school that's out there. I don't care what community that you're in.
That's right.
We look at removing barriers all the time and how to do that and how to become successful. This is a book that I want to make sure that my faculty has a chance to read. This is a great book study book about going from good to great as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to be talking to you about that. But where can people find this book? How can they get in touch with you? What does that look like?
Awesome. So there are a couple of ways to do it. Sorry. You want to get in touch with me, you can scan that code and save me as a contact that has all my information, all my links, everything. If you're interested in Ruthless Equity, of course, you can order single copies on Amazon. But if you're interested in bulk copies, then go to my website or shoot me an email because I give 20% off of bulk copies. If you want a signed copy, go to my website, unfoldthesoul.com, and you'll go to the store and you can order a signed copy. single copies or anything you want from Amazon. But if you're interested in a bulk discount, scan that code, shoot me an email, and my assistant will help you with that bulk order. We'll drop ship. We've drop shipped hundreds already in 3 weeks. I'm just grateful. I'm very proud of it. I'm sorry, I'm not modest about it. My mission is to get it in the hands of every single educator in our country. And I mean that.
Ken, it's holistic. It's holistic, and it captures everything, every angle. And like I said before, that is so cool. And I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I'll be very honest with you. Josh?
You know what, Ken? Thank you very much for being here tonight. It's amazing. Iron sharpens iron, and I know that a lot of people that will see this, you just sharpen them because of your knowledge, your experience, your words, and most importantly, being honest.
Thank you, brother.
Stop. Let's all be honest with each other. Let's support each other. Because
man, you got some hitters on here too, man. My bottom half tightened up a little bit. I saw Tammy Taylor and Sheikah Houston and Dadgum Cafe out there. I saw some other names too. Cat from Chicago. I saw you got some hitters on here.
Well, they knew Ken Williams was going to be on too, so I understand.
That, but thank you. I'm grateful.
Well,
I'm grateful.
Again, thank you. Reach out to Ken Williams. He's an awesome man, great educator, great spirit for all of us, and we need him for 22-23, making sure we connect with each other throughout his book, throughout social media. He's always there, kind man, awesome man, and we had another great show today. But remember, we also have another show on Thursday, the Red Zone, and we're going to have a special Red Zone coming up this coming Thursday. So please reach out, make sure you follow on our Sunday show, on our Thursday show, 7 p.m. tonight on Sunday nights, and also 9 p.m. on Thursday. And don't forget the Fantastic Four, Coach Hurt, Chica, Tammy, and Jefe Cafele.
Some hitters. I forgot about Sean Hurt too. Y'all got the whole lineup, man. That's all right.
Well, we love you. We take care of you. And thank you, everybody. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. God bless you. Stay safe.
Thank you. I'm going to send you two brothers a book, man. I'm going to send you two cats a book.
Ken, hold on for 1 second, okay? Right. Hey, have a great week, everybody. Remember, get a little better each week. Reach out. Make a difference in every kid's life. They deserve it from you. Have a great week, everybody.